I remember I was laying down beside this girl, and then out of nowhere, I ended up looking at her nightstand and saw that there was a ring there, and then her husband walked in out of nowhere. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So this story all takes place, funny enough, actually my grade 12 year of when I graduated. Now, when I graduated, I'm not gonna lie to you, I did become more mature and not do the devil's tango as much as I really did back when I was in high school, but at the same time, I still took my opportunities and moments. Like I said in many videos, I've mentioned that usually throughout life, I go through life saying yes to a lot of things. Like, for example, if a girl walked up to me and asked me out and I barely knew her, chances were I probably would have said yes to her. And I remember there was this one time specifically where me and my friends, we all decided to go out one time and basically go out to this club that me and my friends decided to go to at least once a month. The only reason we did this was because we knew, like, after graduating, our lives would be so ahead of us and we would always focus on school or work. So we decided to basically have this once a month meetup where we would make sure we still stayed as friends and kept close. And I remember as me and my friends were all in this club just hanging out talking, and actually someone on the dance floor, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing this really young woman at the club. I looked at her and I saw her and I thought she was attractive. She was a hot brown haired girl that was actually decently attractive. And when I looked at her, I kind of thought like, hey, like she kind of looks like my middle school crush, but she wasn't. I don't know. I was just in my head about things and I just kept staring at her to the point where she ended up staring at me back. She looked at me back, and then afterwards, all my friends just looked at me saying, yo, bro, she looked at you back. Just go talk to her. Go say something. I don't know if I should. No, Bubba, just do it, bro. Come on. Just because we're out of high school doesn't mean you're out of the game, silly. And as true as that was, I remember I ended up walking up to this girl and said, hey, like, how's it going? Oh, hey, I saw you were staring at me earlier. I wasn't sure if there was like something on my face. No, I was just, you know, you look good, so I was just curious and stuff, you know, just what's up. And from there, me and her, we actually got along really well, and we actually ended up hanging out the entire night. Like, we would dance together, we would go have drinks together, and every time we went for a drink, for example, I remember I would always ask her these like questions and stuff because I did want to get to know her more. But there was one question specifically that she would just not answer, and every time I asked it, she just kept like, you know, getting distracted and deciding to do something else with me. And the question was, oh, so I was just wondering, like, are you like single? And every time I would ask that, she would always make a joke like, oh, like, why do you think I'm here, silly? Or for example, she would say things like, oh, like, it's kind of complicated. And then it kept going on from being totally single to, well, it seemed like she had someone in her life. Now, obviously, I'm gonna say this right now, usually I don't go for women that are taken. I've done this many times throughout high school, and honestly, it really leaves a bad taste in your mouth after you do it. But one thing I will say is that this girl seemed so unsure if she was single or not that I decided to just leave it up to fate to decide if she was. And boy, can I say that was the biggest mistake I've ever done. Because I remember throughout the night, towards like the end of it, I would say, I remember I looked at her and I ended up saying, hey, so like, I was just wondering, like, I don't live far from here. Do you want to like maybe come back to my place? She looks at me with her eyes wide open and she ends up telling me, oh, I mean, like, how about we plan that for another time? Yeah, sure. No, that's cool. I'm down. Here, let me just give you my number. And then afterwards, she ended up grabbing my phone and putting her number in. And at the same time, I decided to basically take her phone and also put my number in there. That way she would have it saved. But I remember as I was putting my number into her phone, I ended up seeing a notification pop up of someone with a blue heart emoji saying, I'm on the way to pick you up right now. Did you have a fun time with your friends? And at that moment, I got really confused. A heart emoji is one thing, but a blue heart emoji? Now, I'm gonna say some science here, and I'm gonna actually break it down what a blue heart emoji is. Ladies and gentlemen, a blue heart emoji is basically showing love towards a friend. A red heart actually means love, and a pink heart's like, oh, like, I'm in a cute relationship with them. At least throughout high school, that's kind of the science I learned from it. I don't know, comment down below if you guys have a different idea of it, but for me, that was kind of the science. So I remember basically I saw this, and in my mind, I was thinking to bring it up, but at the same time, I didn't know if this was just a friend of hers that was just picking her up. Like, I had no idea, no information other than it was a blue heart emoji. I remember I looked at her and she looked at me and handed my phone back, and we switched phones, and one thing led to another. I ended up telling her, okay, so I guess I'll message you. You better, is what she says back, and she walks away. At that moment, I knew something was up, but at the same time, I got distracted with my friends afterwards because they all came up to me cheering for me saying, yo, Bubba, like, look at you, man, the player back into the game. Even though I really never was out of the game, but I don't know. I did have a moment of calm, I guess you could say. But what ends up happening next, I gotta say, was the most insane thing ever. Because the next day I woke up to having a terrible headache, and it's not like I didn't remember anything. I just had a major headache for some reason. And I remember I ended up going to my phone that was charging, and I saw instantly I got a text message from the girl that I met the night before. I remember she texted me saying, hey, Bubba, like, I was wondering, what are you up to today? And one thing led to another. I ended up texting her back saying how I was basically just planning on staying home, so I had really no other plans, and maybe if she wanted to hang out, that would be cool. She got excited. She said what time to pick her up, and that's exactly what happened. But when I went to go pick her up, something was very off, because the address she gave me, I ended up going to, and I parked in front of her house with my car. But then out of nowhere, I ended up seeing her come from a different house that was like a block away. I didn't know why she sent me a different address. Maybe she didn't feel comfortable with me knowing exactly where she lived, or maybe, you know, she didn't want her parents knowing that she was getting picked up from a dude. I have really no idea, but I found it really odd how she ended up sending me an address that was not her own. Obviously, though, I decided to shrug it off. Me and her, we had a great night together. I'm not gonna lie. We ended up going to the movies. We got popcorn, and obviously we ended up going for bubble tea afterwards and basically talking about the movie and stuff. But when it came towards the end of the night, I remember I ended up looking at this girl and I asked her once again, so like, I was just wondering, do you want to maybe head back to my place? She ended up looking at me again with her eyes wide open, and she's like, I mean, actually, you know what? I think we could go to my place. Here, wait, let me check something. She ended up going on her phone, and she ended up basically like looking at someone's location. In my opinion, I thought it was her parents' location. And then she said, oh, I mean, like, we can go back to my place for like a couple hours if you want. Yeah, you know what? Sure, I'm down. And I'm not gonna lie to you, at that moment, I got severely confused, because why would you let me go to your house at the end of the night, but not let me go to your house before when I was going to go pick you up? Like, it made really no sense, and I got really confused from it. But at the same time, once again, I just thought maybe it was a trust thing that bothered her. So I remember we ended up going back to her place, and me and her, we instantly sat down in the living room. We started talking about life and stuff. But when I entered her house, one thing I will say is that this house did not seem like it was a house with like a family in it. Like, you know, when you enter a household, either your friend's house, your grandma's house, or anyone's house really, and you start noticing like really easily if it's like a, you know, a family house where like, you know, there's a mom and dad in there, or like, for example, if it's like a grandma's house or something. Well, when I went to her house, it seemed like it was just a couple living in there. Like, it didn't seem like a house that would have, you know, parents in it. So I was really confused, and as I was looking around, I felt really odd, and I basically looked at her and said, oh, so like, do your parents live with you? Yeah, they do, but I mean, they're usually out of the country like right now. Oh, okay, cool. All right, do you know where the bathroom is? Of course I know where the bathroom is, silly. Here, let me show you where it is. And when I went into the bathroom, I am not joking, I started to realize that there was definitely someone else living in this apartment, because there was like a bunch of men's cologne that was in the bathroom, and I looked around and I was just really curious of if she wore men's cologne or if someone else was also in this house. Now, in my mind, I thought instantly, you know, best case scenario, it was probably her brother, if she had a brother. And at that point, I started questioning myself on the toilet as I was taking a dump. Who lives in this house other than this girl? And trust me when I say this, things got a lot worse from there. Because I remember when I came out of the bathroom, one thing led to another. She ended up making me a cup of coffee, and well, things got really close, and we ended up actually, funny enough, we ended up making out on the couch. And then me and her, we ended up going to her bedroom, and yes, we ended up doing the devil's tango. But I am not joking. When I went into the bedroom, I didn't have a really good chance to look around because obviously I was doing the devil's tango. But right afterwards, when I finished, I ended up looking around the bedroom, and I saw there were so many signs of this woman being taken that it was scary. Like, for example, the closet had like a bunch of men's clothes in it. And when I looked at the nightstand, I saw a lot of books about the stock market, which, I mean, I don't know what girls are into the stock market, but definitely was not this girl that I was with. So at that moment, I looked at her, and as I like turned my body towards her, wearing absolutely nothing, by the way, I ended up noticing her nightstand. And her nightstand, the only thing she had on it was a ring. But not only a ring, the ring was right beside a photo of her wedding day. And at that moment, I knew that this woman was a married woman, and I was doing the devil's tango with her. At that moment, I started panicking. I got up instantly, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're married? And right as I said that, a man ends up walking into the bedroom, and he's like, honey, who's this? And at that moment, it all came together. I realized that the blue heart emoji was her husband, and that the cologne was his in the bathroom. And the reason she did not let me pick her up from her house was because her husband was home at the time. At this moment, my brain was frozen. I didn't know what to think, and there was a guy right in front of me looking at me wearing absolutely nothing, seeing my eggplant hanging down, and he knew instantly what was up. I ended up getting my clothes on, and me and him, we ended up going to the living room, and he was just kind of like upset at me, but at the same time wasn't like severely that angry, because he just wanted to understand how this happened. And I told him about, you know, the club and how I met her and how it was just a one-time thing. And every time his wife would come in to like basically try to show justice for herself, her husband would always just make her silent. And honestly, I felt really bad because, once again, I don't really like getting in between relationships, but this one was already a bust from the very beginning. But if you guys want to make sure you guys don't get into a relationship like that, follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.